Is this thing still on?
I think they can hear us a bit better now. Should we keep talking?
Of course. Let's say it louder for those in the back. Hi, and welcome to the Green Nurse Podcast, an unfiltered discussion about health and healthcare. My name is Amie Archibald-Varley.
And my name is Sarah Fung.
And we are your podcast hosts.
If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, or any other podcast platform, don't forget to hit subscribe so you can get updates on new episodes.
If you love our podcast and our advocacy work, please go to www.grittynurse.com and click on the Support Us button. This will give you access to exclusive episodes and early releases on a monthly basis.
This will help us with the cost of running the podcast, the time and energy to put out awesome and informative episodes. And for that, we thank you and we appreciate you.
Hi, and welcome everyone to the Greeners Podcast. Today, it's just another Sarah and Amie episode. What? We've had so many of these. They've been great. But today, we're going to have a little bit of a different spin of this episode, and I hope that you guys will enjoy. Definitely something a little bit lighthearted.
So this is what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about what we would have done if we hadn't gone into nursing. And I don't mean if you were to ask me now what I have done, given everything I know. I'm saying go back in time to when I was just finishing high school or you were just finishing high school. And if you were to ask our younger selves, what would we have said? That's the question. And I
Wow.
hope people got that because I had put out a tweet which was like, what would your younger self have done? I don't even know if this is the right grammar or not. What would your younger self have done if you hadn't gone into nursing?
You know, it's actually such a good question because I think I've almost stumbled into what I said I wanted to do when I was a child, or I guess I should say not a child, but like, a younger individual. And it's crazy how we kind of landed where we are now anyways as nurses, as podcasters. But I mean, do you want to start first in terms of like what you thought you would have been or where you thought you might have been if you weren't a nurse?
Well, it was always this big question, right? In school, you were supposed to know by the end of high school. So when you were in grade 12 or 18 years old, what you were going to do. And it was like, for me, I felt like it was like a lot of pressure. Like you had to have your life figured out. And I had debated between nursing and journalism, which I feel like are two very different professions.
Right, I'd say.
They're pretty different, and honestly, my view of what a journalist was back then was going to war-torn countries and covering those types of things and writing
Right,
about
right.
it, and I liked writing for fun. I still do, even though I don't do it a lot, but I thought that would take all the fun out of writing, and so again, just kind of going back down the practical route, I decided to go into nursing because there was a lot I enjoyed about nursing too. I liked helping people, I liked biology. It seemed like a pretty fun career at the time. And it's funny because somehow I have been able to combine both of these things in ways that I didn't think was possible. Like
Right.
we think about what kinds of jobs there are going to be for our kids in like 20 years, right? And a lot of those jobs don't even exist right now. Like we don't even know what the future holds for them. And I think that's the same for me. Like I didn't know down the road that it would be even possible to combine these two types of areas that I liked. And I know you have a similar story too because you responded to my tweet.
Yes, I did, which is crazy. It's really funny when we think back to like high school and even younger about I don't know if you've ever did those quizzes.
Yes.
The guidance counselor, they had like, oh, you plot these things out on a map, and then at the end, it gives you like the most likely career that you'd get into. And honest to God, none of that stuff ever worked out for me. I think I remember when I was clicking things, it said that I'd be like in the arts and drama. And I actually do remember doing a lot of that in school. So here's a little bit about me, maybe too much, but like I used to dance a lot. So I used to do jazz and hip hop. I know, right? That's
I'm
weird,
still
right?
learning stuff about you like all the time.
Yeah, so I used to do jazz and hip hop, and I used to like I was big into arts and big into drama because my brother was also into the arts. So he went to Stratford. I used to watch him do all of his different plays for high
Really?
school. Yeah, he
Wow.
did. He went to Stratford. He did a play at Stratford. And I remember being like, yeah, he's going to be a producer or he's going to be a director and I'm going to be an actress. And I remember, I think it must have been around like grade 10 where I was just like, yeah, I don't think that's what I'm going to do. And I think maybe it just dawned on me that I was just like, there weren't actually a lot of actors or actresses or let's just say the term actor that looked like me. I think we
Right.
could have named them off all on one hand. It was like Will Smith, Denzel Washington, like there's it was just like five of them, and I was just like, yeah, maybe this space isn't really cut out for me. But it's kind of crazy how that even came back full circle a little bit later because I actually did acting classes. I know, really
What?
weird,
Oh
right?
my
Yeah,
gosh,
I
Amie,
did.
this is so revealing today.
It's so bad.
You've never mentioned this before. Acting, dancing, what's next? Did you have secret singing lessons I don't know about?
No, I can't sing. Let's not even go there, like, I can't sing. Yeah, so it was kinda crazy. I actually did some acting classes, and I did them in the evenings, and I actually did them at Sutherland Models, which is kind of crazy because I was like, "Oh, maybe that's the other thing. Maybe I could be a model." And those dreams fell down hard because, I remember when they, sized me up, literally, I'm not even lying. They literally sized me up, and they were just like, "You're too short." I was 5'5", and they were looking for, like, 5'9" and up, and I just in terms of the modeling, like, that was not gonna happen, but I did actually do some modeling, not with Sutherland, but independently. I did a couple things here and there, and gosh, it was just crazy that I did all of these things, and yeah, so I did my acting classes. I did get a couple callbacks, but I just don't know. I just didn't do it. I don't know what really changed my mind. I had gone to a couple, shindigs and things and saw a couple things, and I was like, "I don't know if this is for me." So that kind of whittled away, and I decided to say, "Okay, well, what might be next?" And, I think I kind of told the story of my grandfather getting sick and being like, "Okay, yeah, these people suck. Like, I should really find something, or I think I could do better than them." And again, like my pathway into nursing wasn't a straight line. But again, just going back to really what I wanted to be was I wanted to be a news weather girl. I wanted to be on the news. I wanted to talk about, fashion, and I wanted to talk about weather, and I wanted to talk about clothing, and I want to talk about all these things, and I didn't do it. But like you said, this world is a crazy place, and I would have never thought that I would have been able to combine the job that I have now, so working as a nurse, working in quality improvement, and doing aspects of journalism. Like, we are considered freelance journalists.
I know, it's crazy, right? And actually, come to think of it, I do know someone who is a weather girl for the Weather Network.
Oh, really?
She's actually a meteorologist, and
Right.
it's not as glamorous as you think. So,
I don't know if that's what I would have went to. I think I might have went into, like, I think I more wanted to be like a host of, like, a show kinda, you know what I mean?
well, yeah, so she started out that way, right? But she told me that she has to get up at, I don't know if it's 3 or 4 in the morning. So
Oh
she
god.
has to get up, get ready, get her hair and makeup done, go to the studio, like plan out what she's gonna say. Then, it's live at like 7 a.m. or whatever. And then so she's done her day by like 10 and she just goes back and has a nap.
That sounds pretty awesome, actually. Like, I I don't see any downsides to that your workday ends at 10, you can go back to bed. That sounds perfect.
Okay, well, there's the door's still open there. I mean, maybe not weather reporting, maybe some other type of reporting,
Who
but
knows? Who knows?
yeah.
We don't know what the future holds. I mean, I'm always trying to strike while the iron's hot, and I was just like, "Hey, if there's something out there or someone's listening, yeah, give me a call. I'm ready to do it." We'll see what
We are
happens.
ready. We're ready. We're down for anything.
Right?
But it's funny because I was going through a lot of the responses that I got as to what people would have done. And a lot of nurses said they wanted to be teachers, they wanted
Right.
to be veterinarians, they wanted to be some other healthcare professional like physio or whatever. And then there was, so those are, I would consider helping professions. But then
Right.
another random group of people that are like, I would have wanted to be a musician, an actor, a dancer, a break dancer, and there was, like, very few people who wanted to go into finance or engineering, like, those types of professions, so it's just interesting, and it's funny because nobody said that they wanted to be a physician. I don't know if it's because of who chose to respond, or maybe people, have tried to get into medical school and didn't get in, so I don't know if people just didn't comment, with that experience.
It's good that you brought that up because I'm gonna drop a bomb. I actually did apply to med school, and I always thought to myself, I'm like, what would it look like on the other side, like the other side, right? Because we as nurses, we have a different role than physicians, and I always used to think to myself, what would it be like to be a physician? Like, what would that actually like? And I wrote my MCAT. Oh God, yikes.
Before I met you, I think.
Paper based, yeah, like, I wrote it when people really cried writing their MCAT because you were there all day, and I think I had applied twice, and I didn't get in. And I actually had recently applied too and still didn't get in. So but I've had a lot of great people, a lot of great mentors, a lot of great individuals who just have been asking me the hard questions about, like, what exactly do I want to do? And I feel like I'm getting very, very close to where I want to be. And I'm kind of excited about what might happen next because, I'm loving the fact that we get to tie in healthcare, health policy with journalism. Like, I don't know, this is just a whole other area that I feel is really important.
We're doing something that not a lot of other nurses are doing, and it's not because I think we're just willing to try, like, we're willing to work hard, keep pushing, make those connections, network. We wanna build other nurses up too, so it's not like we wanna be the only ones and we're not helping people that wanna do the same thing. So I think maybe that approach has worked for us. Um, I don't know, like, I'm really excited for what the future holds, and I think what holds a lot of people back is that they think in order to combine their passions, it means they have to go back to school for, like, another four-year undergraduate degree, and, there's a lot of time and money and energy involved in that, but it doesn't have to be that way. I think you can find creative ways to tie in what you wanna do, like, I don't know about you, but I didn't consider going back to school to do what we're doing
Right.
now. It just kinda worked out because we did it on our own, and we started gaining traction, and then it kinda just snowballed from there.
I'm not adverse to going back to school. I do think about, the fact that we have a lot of things on the go. I have, I got a family, I have other responsibilities, and it's not that I would discount it altogether, but I feel like, this is a really good time, a really good moment for us to learn and try something new. And I'm excited. Like, I think this is really cool. And I think a lot of people are feeling stuck, right? Are feeling unhappy with maybe where they are, where they work, and I think that this is kind of one of the narratives that we're kind of sold as individuals, where it's just like, all right, so this is the goal and this is how you get there. You need to go to university. Like, I think you actually had a post like this. So you need to go to university, you
Yeah.
need to get a really good job, you need to get married, you need to get a house with a picket fence, you got to have the 2.5 kids, and then you got to do this day in and day out until the day you die. It just sounds miserable. It sounds horrible. I'm like, I don't want that.
Actually, Amy, my post was about the day you retire, not the day you die, but if you work too hard, maybe the day you retire could be the day that you die.
Well, it just sounds miserable to me. Like, I don't think that, I mean, maybe for some people that works, right? Maybe that's what they want. They just want normalcy, status quo 101, and that box is the box that they want to check off. But to me, that sounds boring. It sounds
It does sound
horridly
boring.
awful. And I just think that, those expectations suck, and I don't want, like, that's not what I want for myself. And I think that this journey is amazing, and I wanna see how much I can maximize and learn from it. Like, I think I'm learning every single day. Like, I think that's probably the most rewarding part about being a podcaster, being able to, talk to various different folks in the media and talk about politics and healthcare. And it's just like every day I'm learning something. And I think that is kind of what's keeping me going, right? I think one of the things that you've mentioned, and maybe you'll kind of get into it, is just the fact that we get into these jobs and you get there 3 years, 4 years, 5 years in, and you're just like, "I don't feel like I'm growing. I don't feel like I'm changing," right? And it's a tough place to be, and some people are okay to stay like that for many, many years, right?
Right, and I think there's a balance, right? So you don't want to be so stressed all the time that there's no time to breathe, but then you don't wanna
Right.
be in a job where it's so basically the same every day that you want, at least for me, I would wanna stab my eyes out if that was the case. Like,
Step your
same
step
every day, punch in, punch out, nothing changes. There's no learning, there's no difference in what you do. Like, I think there's those 2 extremes, and it's okay to want something and then change your mind too, because the other
Right.
thing that I was always concerned about with my career is that I was changing jobs, like, every 2 years, and I thought, like, "There's something wrong with me, I can't find my dream job." I don't know what is going on, like, I just keep wanting to try something new, and then I just realized that's who I am. Like, I try something and I'm like, "Okay, the first year is all about learning. The second year, I feel like I'm getting the hang of it." And then for one reason or another, I wanna try something new, or I wanna see what another area looks like, and I don't think anymore that there's anything wrong with it, because I was sold this idea, as you mentioned, that you graduate nursing school, you get a job in the hospital. You stay there until you retire, then you retire, and that was the only path I knew.
You max out at 25 years with the amount of money that you make, right? It's just like, "All right, I hit year 13, and year 13 to 25, this is it."
And I had this growing sense of dread that, like, I just kept thinking, like, "Is this it? Like, this is what I signed up for?" But I didn't wanna verbalize it, because then it meant that, I don't know, I was disappointing myself, or that I did all this school and all this work and it wasn't really what I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, that's the most challenging part, right? The fact that you feel that you might be letting other people down, you're letting yourself down because you have these expectations that, "Oh, you should be doing this one particular thing." And I think that that's a huge thing that a lot of people struggle with. And I think that, speaking to nurses and other folks in healthcare, like I think there's a lot of people thinking about what changes can be out there. And I honestly think that the possibilities are endless. Like you don't have to feel stuck. I think a lot of people feel stuck. And I think it's just take the opportunity to try something different and see what happens. Like, who knows? Like, you never know. Like, I would have never, ever imagined that we'd be where we are 3 years
No,
ago.
and it was like, we didn't know anything. So, I mean, to do a podcast is one thing, but to learn all of the other things that come with it. So it's not just hitting the record button, right? We had to learn all of the technology. We had to figure out how to structure an episode. We had to figure out how to promote it. We had to figure out all these things. And I mean, I guess we could have gone and taken a course and learned, but I almost feel like this way was faster and more fun, to just get out there and do it.
Yeah, and I think maybe this is just a nursing thing. I think we learn by doing. I not saying that I couldn't study and I can't read a book. Of course, like
Oh, we've
God,
done
we've
that.
read so
Yeah.
much stuff. But I think I like the experience of learning how to do it on my own, right? The trial and error. Oh my gosh, our first episode, and just kind of figuring it out. And I think that just made the journey much more rewarding, right? It's just that we had that opportunity to learn, to continue to grow, and we're still learning and we're still growing and we're still changing and tweaking the way that we do things. And I think that's a really cool spot to be in where you can be like, all right, I am in control of this and I can tweak it this way or I could tweak it that way. Or it's like, all right, it's a very seldom that you're in a position that you're in the driver's seat. I think that more people would enjoy, like, I don't know. I think this whole aspect of entrepreneurship and being able to be, that person who's doing for themselves, I think it's quite empowering.
Right, and it's something that I think when you're a nurse and you're in that culture, right, you don't feel like you have the permission to just go off on your own, because if you don't work for a hospital or an organization, then who are you? People don't think that they
Right.
could go off on their own or they could work for themselves, but there are a lot of nurses, not enough, but there are enough nurses doing it that I can say for sure that it's a path that can be rewarding, you can go down it. I think a lot of people feel they just kind of talk themselves out of it before they even get started, right? So you have a really secure job, you get a paycheck, the same amount every month, and if you go off on your own, then you're really on your own. There's nothing to hold
Right.
you, like, there's nothing to hold on to. I mean, you can kind of do you can keep your full-time job while you start on your journey, right? But at some point you have to let go and see what happens. And that can be, like I said, really scary. And I know that it's not for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree, and I think you said something that kind of, like, really want makes me think, and you said kinda like, who would you be or what would you be if it wasn't just, like, a nurse? And I think that I'd like to ask, the folks that are listening, like, who would you be if you weren't in the profession you are? Or, not seeing yourself as the profession as how it's defined. Because I think a lot of people see themselves that when you ask somebody, like, who you are or what do you do, the first thing is that they'll tell you about their profession. They don't necessarily necessarily say, "Oh, I'm an avid baker," or, "I'm a mom," or they'd say, "I'm a nurse," or "I'm a doctor," or "I'm a teacher," which I think is, I don't know if that's like a Western thing, is really bizarre, but it's weird that we define ourselves by our professions, and I want to challenge people to think about how might you define yourself differently now? If it wasn't just about the work that you were doing, but something that you loved and your passion, how might that change the way you think about yourself? When someone asks me, like, "Tell me about yourself," which is, oh god, I hate those
Small talk.
questions, but it's just like the first, well, yeah, "Tell me about yourself," but it's the first thing that comes to my mind isn't just that I'm a nurse, it's there's so much more that just through this journey we've been able to add and continue to build off of, that our one profession doesn't define the type of person who we are, and I think that's hugely enriching, and it just speaks to, a wealth and diversity and experience, which I think that you can't put a dollar amount on that at all.
Right, and I think a really good idea is to practice with kids, and I know this sounds silly, but, I went with my son this week on a field trip, and the kids were talking to me, and it's like, "What do you do?" And, of course, I told them I'm a nurse, and then of course, they think like, "Oh, so you work in a hospital," and I'm like, "Okay, here's my chance to explain to children." I have to explain in a really basic way what I do, and so when I told them, I'm like, "I do healthcare advocacy, I talk to people about their careers, I talk to people about things that are important that are happening in healthcare." I tried to explain it really simply, but I think, like, if you can explain it to an adult, maybe in a little bit more detail the way you explain to a child, then they kinda get it. Like, nurses don't just work in hospitals. Nurses don't just, follow doctor's orders. Nurses don't just wear the white gowns and the white caps. It's trying to break those stereotypes, and also not putting all of your identity into being a nurse because you're so much more than that.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Like, I couldn't say that any better. And it's kind of funny that you said, like, you were explaining to these little kids about what you did. If you ask my kids, it's kind of funny because they actually won't say that I'm just a nurse or that my mom's a nurse. They actually add that I'm a gritty nurse, which is amazing. Like, I don't even know how they like, but why, I mean, they've heard the beginning of our music and whatnot, but it's just funny that, to them, they're just like, "Oh, my mom's a gritty nurse, and my mom is on TV, and my mom is on radio, and my mom does this, and my mom does that." They don't really care. Like, I have to be honest. I think the novelty has completely worn off. Like, now it's just like, "Oh, mommy's gotta go do, like, an interview." They're like, "Okay, whatever, we're gonna go
Yeah.
outside and play." But, I mean, I think that even my kids don't define me just by one particular thing. They see that I've done a variety of different things, and I hope that, this is also something that I think I do for them too, right? Like, I think about what experiences this might be able to afford them, and, like, if they say to me, "Hey, mom, I'm interested in radio," or, "Mom, I'm interested in television," that I might be able to say, "Here's some tips and tricks that I had," or, "Here's some of the stuff that I used," or some of the things that I did to help encourage them in a different way or in a different way forward. Because I don't think, like, again, I just never would have seen myself here, and I talk to my parents about it all the time, and they're always just like, "Oh my god, I can't believe my daughter does this, and how did you get here?" And it's just, I think that it's so important for our kids to be able to see us in a variety of different roles, and to also feel that, maybe they could be in that space too. Because again, like, that was one of the things that deterred me from radio and television. There was nobody that looked like me. I didn't think that it was a space where I'd be welcome. And to be honest, nursing was like that too. Like I remember looking at my graduate class, and I was probably like one of maybe 10 um black individuals out of that, that catchment. And I think this is the time and the opportunity that we have to put ourselves and to be in spaces that are not that we might not necessarily see ourselves in. And I think that, whatever I can do to, shimmy my way into other spaces, I'm going to do it because I'm a rule breaker. And I don't like the status quo, and I want to shake it up. And I want to, I want other young kids to be like, oh, look, I could be that too. I could do a podcast, or I can, go on the radio. I think that's really cool. And I think that's a cool role model that I, hopefully that my kids think is something that they can see themselves in. Or I'm not saying that they have to, but just, gives them options and makes them see themselves in different roles and different opportunities that might be presented towards them.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned not seeing yourself represented because when I was growing up, the only journalist I could ever think of was Connie Chung. That was who I looked up to. That
That's
was
so
who my
funny.
mom talked about all the time. And I actually took a class in high school called communications, where it's basically like you learned journalism, you learned how to do videos. I didn't have a great experience there only because I feel like my high school teacher was a semi pedophile. So I felt really
Ew.
yeah, I felt
That's so
he was
bizarre.
uncomfortably interested in the girls of the class and
Oh no.
made me feel very uncomfortable, and also I had a
There's one in every high school.
no, it was like the way that he smiled and looked people up and down just gave me the
Ugh,
chills,
it's
and
gross.
because what we had to do is sometimes we had to come after school or on lunch break to edit our videos, and I always made sure that I wasn't alone with him because he made me feel very uncomfortable. This is like a random aside. And the group that I was assigned to because we couldn't pick our own groups never did any work. And I was feeling like I'm like, am I doing all this on my own? Where's my team? So I think that kind of turned me off of journalism a little bit. But obviously things have changed in leaps and bounds since then. And I think that if I can show kids that are racialized, especially girls, that this is a space that we can and we do belong in, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. This is kind of crazy. I just thought to myself that I used to do TV shows with my stuffies. So I'd like line them up like they're on the Jerry Springer show, and they'd like all have like their various different commentaries. But yeah, like again, like you said, that representation is huge. And I'm glad that we could be in this space and we could navigate the space. And for your creepy teacher, like like I said, there's one in every high school. Oh God. But yeah, I'm glad that we can navigate these spaces, and who knows what's next. What do you think is next, Sarah?
I don't know. I don't know how much we should give away, but we got some big projects coming up next year.
Oh yeah, yeah, we do.
Some exciting stuff down the line. I'm sure there are things that we don't even know about that are going to pop up, but we're definitely not going anywhere anytime soon.
Just being open and willing to try new things is also a really good space to be in. I actually gave some advice to another nurse just recently where they were saying, "Well, I'm interested in this space. I don't know if I fit here." And I'm like, "Just apply." Like there's never be afraid of a yes, right? At the end of the day, the worst case scenario is no, you can't do it. But if you get a yes, that's an end to try something new. So never be afraid of a yes. Put your best foot forward and just give it a try.
And also, we never asked permission to podcast. We just did it.
Hell
We're
knows.
like, we're not going to ask permission. We're just going to do it. We didn't need permission from anyone. And you don't need permission from anyone either to follow your dream or go down a different path or change what you're going to do. You only need permission from yourself.
Damn right.